Good afternoon and welcome to the Hibs Observer Monday match debrief with myself, Liam Bryce, joined by Craig Nisbet to take a look back at Saturday's quite brilliant win for Hibs, 3-1 up at Pittodrie, a really significant result and performance for David Gray and his side. Craig, first of all, thanks for joining us. How are you after Saturday?
Very, very good. I think for most people, that's probably performance and result of the season coming together. So, excited to discuss it and, looking ahead to a big game this week.
Yeah, I mean, you're making a habit of getting on here for Hibs victories now. Are you getting used to it yet? No?
No, definitely, definitely not. Nice.
So just before we get started, folks, obviously, just as always, a word for our sponsor. Good Vibes Giveaways are proud to sponsor the Hibs Observer and offer fantastic prizes to fans of the club. Prizes change weekly and they include tech and gadgets, days out, weekends away, tax-free cash, and even Oasis tickets. So get your tickets now at www.goodvibesgiveaways.com. So here we go. Aberdeen 1, Hibs 3. A brilliant, as I said at the top of the show, a really good result and performance for David Gray's side, and pretty much the perfect result performance to take into the Edinburgh Derby on Boxing Day. Again, just everything about it, Greg, really, it just clicked for Hibs. I think from the moment obviously Aberdeen do take the lead, but I thought, kind of Hibs well in the game. First things first, though, the lineup on Saturday, there was a few changes. Josh Campbell coming into the middle of the park and Martin Boyle going up front. What was your reaction when the lineup came out?
Yeah, I thought I thought that Gale wouldn't start. More so, just because I thought that they'll probably obviously want to rely on him for potentially for the derby, and that's why I thought he wouldn't start, and they changed things up a little bit. But I really liked the way David Gray set up, and I think we've seen with Josh Campbell that away games where you're maybe not going to have a lot of the ball, or which kind of happened at the weekend as well in terms of possession, plus the weather and the conditions as well kind of meant it was, Hibs were a bit more direct in terms of their approach.
Yep.
And I think if you're going to play, Ellie and Martin as a front two, you need somebody with a bit of a physical presence in the number 10 role, someone who can, we know Josh Campbell's pretty decent in the air. And especially if you're out of possession we know Aberdeen are a good side. Like if you look where they are in the table and what they've done to Celtic and other teams this season, they can hurt you. So I think it made a lot of sense, that lineup, and I didn't expect it to click and come together as much as it did, to be honest with you. But I think it's got to go full credit to David Gray for sort of the way we set up, the way we played, the way we pressed. Even the substitutions, although forced, I think also helped the game as well. Instead, in terms of our approach and seeing things out, and it gives us that kind of new dimension in terms of playing, because Boyle's kind of been on the periphery a lot this season, and to see him come in and put in a performance like that, it's again probably testament to Gray and how he's managed them during that period of time and able to get that performance out of him.
Yeah, because I mean, it was starting to get to the point I felt we'll talk about Martin Boyle and his specific contributions later on. But I think just in terms of him coming into that role, it did kind of start to feel for a wee while that you weren't sure if there was going to be a place for him in this team. I know he can play up through the middle, but Gray's been using this system for a number of weeks now, and he'd never put him in there. So it had started to feel a wee bit like that, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he's like, obviously we've seen at the weekend like the ability he's got when he's in the final third, and we've spoke before on the show that with this new setup, the sort of 3-4-1-2 or 3-4-2-1, depending on how we sort of adapt the front three, there is a place for him there. But I felt like a lot of this season he was getting the ball really deep, and he's not got that pace that he used to have to blow by people. He needs to be sort of in the box where legs can be dangled, and players are a bit unsure because they know he can twist and turn in those areas, and that's where we need to get him. And we've just not been able to do that through a number of reasons. I don't think when he's had the chance he's played particularly well when he's come into the team. So it's probably a mix of factors, but I think we've managed to keep a bit of consistency with that back three and that four across that part of the pitch there, just with the wing backs and the two fielders. And with Ellie, with his performances recently, we know what we get from Josh. It kind of meant that Martin could kind of slot in and sort of play his game. And I think the way, which we'll probably touch on later, how Gray had the front two pressing as well, suited him, and it just meant out of possession. He could conserve a bit of energy, and then when we got the ball, they had the pace to hurt Aberdeen in behind, which we saw from the home game, the 3-3 game that you're able to do against Aberdeen with a bit of pace.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's just take a wee look at this is the expected goals race chart from Saturday's game. If you're not familiar with this, folks, it's just basically maps out how chances were created, gives you an idea how and when, chances were created, the quality of the chances. You can see the bigger the jump there, the higher quality of chance, the more expected goals that it accumulates. And it just gives you an idea and an overview of how the flow of the game, really. And you can see here at Hibs, it was a really efficient performance in front of goal. Less expected goals on the day than Aberdeen, and not according to StatsBomb's data collection, very little, nothing really created throughout a lot of the second half. A lot of that second half was about game management. You can see here Ellie Yuan's goal, and then the Nicky Cadden goal, and then the Martin Boyle goal. And then you can see Aberdeen just trying to kind of push the longer the second half went on, but have seen it out really well. It's kind of good to see this in a way, Craig, because Hibs had 4 shots on target. They've scored 3 goals. David Gray's talked an awful lot about them not being clinical enough at points this season. Well, I think Saturday is about as clinical as you can get almost.
Yeah, it's funny when this was in the group chat yesterday, and it just cuts off after the 50th minute. There's no chances. But the goal, the third goal came at a perfect time. Just after half time to go 3-1 up, and at that point, then Hibs are kind of inviting Aberdeen on and saying, right, what have you got, and knowing fine well that still having Boyle and Yuan on the pitch, that's what we'd be looking to do. We'd be looking to counter, and they pushed their fullbacks really high. Eventually they were going to probably sacrifice Shinnie or Nielsen in the middle. So it was always that they were probably always, while they were in possession and sort of in control of that, the second half, the majority of the time, I think there was definitely a bit of a fear that if we won the ball back, that we could hurt them. And actually, the credit to the players, because I think we started to set off a little bit, but then when Newell went off and Kwon came on, he sort of pushed up a little bit more beside Josh Campbell, and Ellie and Martin still pressed, right up until the final minutes of the game. Yeah. So, Aberdeen, obviously, they sort of threw caution to the wind, and, Ambrose came on, then Duke came on, and then they sort of chucked another few players, and they were really going for it. But, I still felt, even though Ambrose had a couple of really big chances, I know they were quite big XG chances as well, that they didn't hugely cut us open. The Ambrose when he ran through, but Rocky was still in good distance with him and able to maybe disrupt him a little bit. It wasn't a clean chance, and after that, it was a lot of sort of balls into the box that we were able to deal with. So it was almost like the perfect performance where the goals came at really good times, and then we were able just to see the game out, which obviously we've not done a lot of this season.
Yeah, you can kind of see that, the Aberdeen's expected goal kind of jumps up quite steadily through the second half. But then you get into the sort of last 5 minutes and into stoppage time, and you can see it just stops there. It's like they ran out of ideas at that point. And as you say, there was a lot to do with Hibs, how they went for the full 90 minutes in terms of that press. We're going to touch on that at some point as well. But yeah, just that kind of almost the perfect away performance, really, wasn't it, if you were to sum it up?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, going the goal down, was far from ideal, and I think Aberdeen on our right and their left, they did cause us quite a lot of problems. But to score so quickly, to go 1-1, then to sort of push on a little bit, as you can see there, in terms of how the chances we were creating, just the way we were pressing and going about the game. To obviously go in at the break 2-1, and that third goal just after half time, as I said, is just perfect. And as it probably was the perfect away performance, and you could see that by even just the way the players were celebrating tackles and working hard and things like that, which was, getting stuck in with each other, and when there was little bits of stuff going on during the game with Campbell and things like that, sticking up for each other, that's what has been missing really
Yeah.
all season. We've just, at times, we've not tracked back, we've not followed a man into the box, and we've conceded a goal and the game's changed. And whereas this game, it was like everybody just kept on going right up until the 96, 97 minute, whenever the game ended. And the way the league is this season and how tight things are from where we are and the bottom of the league and up to sort of fourth and fifth, like, you have to do that because everyone can take points off each other.
Aye, absolutely. We'll just take it before we go on to discussing the goals. Just the Hibs pass it map from the game. Again, you can see here kind of similarities and some slight differences maybe to the previous week's game. Obviously, I think one of the kind of features is Nicky Cadden high on the left there, and Chris Cadden not so much, a wee bit more withdrawn. I see a lot of kind of Hibs play, especially in the game against Ross County. A lot of it is kind of focused down that left. Was maybe, if you can look at this, sort of maybe the thickness of the lines, folks, basically just kind of indicates the amount of passes. So the thicker the line, the more passes exchanged between two players. So there is kind of still, you think, an emphasis on that left hand side, but I think, you can see the positions. You were kind of talking about this earlier on, the positions that Martin Boyle's taken up, Josh Campbell as well. Is this kind of maybe aligned with what you saw on Saturday?
Yeah, there's still especially when we went more direct than we have done in recent weeks, with Jordan Smith. I think just reading the elements in the game and the wind and stuff like that, and certainly getting the ball long, which kind of made a lot of sense. And yeah, there's still a reliance on going down the left hand side, but I think when you've got Iredale's really comfortable on the ball. He's got a good left foot, and then obviously that's where Nicky Cadden is and Yuan is. So you want those guys to get on the ball as much as possible. But where I think, unlike the Ross County game, on our right hand side there wasn't, Hoylett sort of struggled to kind of find a place, and Gale was kind of isolated a little bit. You can see there that Campbell getting close to Boyle, which is a good sign, and getting into those areas. And Martin, I think, took up some really good positions, and Chris Cadden wasn't involved too much, but he made some good supporting runs and got involved where he needed to be, and kind of led to the second goal. And then obviously we can see the influence that Triantis had in that sort of slightly deeper position, as we touched on, that we'll touch on later, is that Newell sort of was forced to push up a little bit to kind of put a bit more pressure on the Aberdeen midfield. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that the shape, it'll evolve over time, and I would like us to not go down the left so much and try and switch the play, because I do think we've got players that can hurt teams on the other side as well. But certainly it was a good performance, and I think everybody played their part across the pitch.
Absolutely. So let's get to the goals. So obviously it wasn't a good start for Hibs. There's not a lot in the game until that point. Aberdeen, I thought, maybe had the upper hand a wee bit, but as you said, it was sort of two teams just trying to kind of feel each other out. The conditions were, it was extremely windy, so they were playing a part. But yeah, this wasn't, I must have probably only negative of the day, or well, if you include the injuries as well, but we'll maybe talk about them later on. It just wasn't great from a Hibs point of view, this goal, was it?
No, and it's one of the issues with the setup, and especially the way Hibs play that sort of 3-4-1-2, is that there's a big reliance on the wing backs, so they are going to push quite high up into the pitch. And I think as McKenzie clears the ball here, I've sort of highlighted Triantis and Chris Cadden just at the front, and Warren O'Hora just in behind, and it's Clarkson and Kiskinen who are just in those little pockets of space in between O'Hora, Triantis and Chris Cadden. And Clarkson did that quite a lot in the first half, similar to what we touched on with Yuan last week about Ross County, just taking up that position out on the left and just creating a bit of an overload. So It is a bit of a long punt up the pitch, a bit of a clearance. You can see Campbell kind of closing it down, but as it goes on, if you go into the next clip, Clarkson just sort of, he takes out the air really, really well. And even at this stage here, at this moment, as he's driving forward, like Clarkson's, I think he's a really talented player, but he's not got blistering pace. I do feel like Triantis or Chris Cadden would have been able to catch up at this point, and Rocky could have slid across with Iredale. But O'Hora starts to go, obviously anticipating the run off Kiskinen on the left hand side, and it's just one of those split second decisions that he thinks maybe I can go and pinch the ball.
Yeah.
But if you go into the next clip, he's just a yard or two slow, and it just allows Clarkson to just sort of feed the ball between his legs and put Kiskinen in behind. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure he'll look back at it and be gutted that he did that. It just happens so fast in football, and and obviously as Kiskinen then goes in, it's difficult for Rocky, and I actually thought he was unbelievable throughout the game as well. I thought, and especially when Ambrose came on, I thought he was great. So I'm not having a massive go at him here, but I just think, I'm sure they would have analysed Kiskinen. And listen, he's pretty good at going both directions. He creates a chance early on where he sort of goes down the byline and cuts it back with his left foot, and Rocky actually makes a really good block from maybe McGrath, I think, I think.
I know the one you're talking about, but I can't remember the player. Aye.
Yeah. So listen, maybe if you show him down that side, he pulls the ball back and Aberdeen score. I don't know. I just think once you get him into this position here, the last thing you want him to do is come inside. And he does, and to be fair to him, he sort of takes that touch just out his foot, and before Rocky can really set himself to block, he just sort of hits it between his legs and into the bottom corner. Smith, no real chance there. So, it wasn't a great start, and actually I think Aberdeen hurt us a couple of times down that left, and obviously Kiskinen had the effort that hit the inside of the post and stayed out somehow. And that is, I suppose, when you play that shape and that style, and you want players to push and you want to press on the front foot, there is the danger of the ball going in behind. And if teams have got good pace in the wide areas like Aberdeen do, they can hurt you. So, yeah, maybe a food for thought, I think, for upcoming games for David Gray.
Yeah, absolutely. But Hibs were not behind for long. First goal coming through Eli Yuan. And, I mean, we're, on the show, we're very analytical, tactical. We use a lot of data. But I mean, just this, there is something to be appreciated about a goal that originates just from a big punt up the park from the keeper, isn't there? You've got to appreciate it.
No, you absolutely do. You absolutely do. And I think, the setup here, from an Aberdeen perspective, I don't know if the wind catches the ball, whether they're not particularly. I think McKenzie's not tucked in enough there. And, from obviously they play two holding midfielders in Nielsen and Shinnie, and again they're quite high up at this point as well. I don't really understand the setup there, to be honest. But yeah, as the ball goes long there, you can sort of see Boyle just looking at it, but he's about to make that run in behind. And if you go into the next clip, like Josh Campbell, the win is phenomenal because he's not the tallest, but he has such a great jump on him, and his timing is great. And we touched on it last week against Ross County, that I thought defensively some of his heading just when we were under that pressure towards the end of the game was great, and it was great to see it in an attacking sense here. And obviously it's a huge error that's coming up when Rubicic just sort of, I mean, we've all been there when you've taken a swipe, but what I like about Boyle, how many times have we seen a flick on and the striker just not anticipating it and being flat-footed and just not taking advantage of anything if there was an error there. And actually the fact that Boyle anticipates Campbell's flick on and goes at least to put a bit of pressure on Rubicic, might contribute to or not, but it's a fresh air swipe. I've certainly been there before. And again, it's for a player that we touched on at the top of the show who's not had a lot of minutes and, has fallen out of favour quite a lot. And to get into a position like this and still have the awareness and the quality just to square that ball. So I'm sure there was a huge bit of him that maybe wanted to take that on himself and get a goal. Yeah, and it's a great little pull back to Ellie. And to be fair, I just wanted to kind of highlight here just the fact that how many times have we seen Ewan go through and just take an extra touch or try that extra bit, and we've been dying on him just getting the goals he deserves. And I think here, as the ball gets played to him, he just sort of lets it roll across his body, right foot, and it's just a nice sort of simple finish, but one we've just not seen too much this season, just past the goalkeeper. And it was perfect, when David Gray picked that front three, that is exactly what he had in mind. Probably a long ball, a Campbell flick on, and a Boyle or a Ewan cut back and a goal.
Yeah, you've got to imagine that's been discussed beforehand, because you say sometimes you just need to play the conditions for what they are, and it was in its own way very, very well worked. As you see, you can just get a look at Eli Ewan's finish. I totally agree with you. It's just a nice wee touch on his right foot onto his left, and it just opens up that near post there for him. it's just the kind of thing you just know he's got it in his locker. And sometimes when you would just kind of like to see him simplify his game at times. And this is a kind of perfect example of it here, because he should get so many goals like that, shouldn't he?
Yeah, absolutely, and it was just great to see that, just the way, because I think especially against Celtic and stuff, we highlighted so many times where Kukurevich took that extra touch, that extra bit, and we just lost the chance. And it was just nice to see here Ellie just let it come, one touch with his right foot, just open it up, and you can see there the keeper's got no chance, just because he's done it so fast, and he's just got that quality and that calmness just to slide it past them.
So on to the second goal. It just brilliantly worked, this, wasn't it? Starts down that right-hand side with Cadden and Newell, and goes from there.
Yeah, I mean, it actually comes from like a horrendous bit of play from both teams, where it's proper head tennis, like back and forth, and then Newell just plucks the ball out the air on his chest, takes a really nice touch, and just plays it out to Chris Cadden. And what I love, and what we want to see about Newell, and we've highlighted that a few times this season, is just his, he can influence the game going forward. He's got the engine to go in there, and yeah, we've seen, against Celtic and our teams, he's not maybe quite got the finish that we would want him to have, but certainly, like, in terms of creating chances, he's got that. So what I like here is once he plays it out to Chris Cadden, he goes off on that run to try and support. Chris Cadden knocks it back into him, and then again, what's really good here, Chris Cadden runs in behind, sort of keeping McKenzie at bay. We can see Nielsen recovering inside, and Boyle, just again, he's kind of got the defender in that kind of 1v1 position. His body shape's always open, looking to receive the ball, which I think is great. It's a really nice pass from Joe Newell, kind of outside of the left boot.
Yeah.
And actually, the next picture probably doesn't do it justice, but the first touch from Martin Boyle is tremendous, because he just sort of moves it quick enough, and the defender ends up becoming quite flat-footed. He sort of dangles a left foot, and Boyle's just able to then skip past them and dribble down towards the byline. So, it's a really great bit touch, and that's what we've been talking about with Martin Boyle. That's where you want him. You want him in the box there, where defenders are becoming, are probably a bit nervous to go in for a tackle, because they know he can just spring past them. So it's a phenomenal first touch. So if you've not seen that, or definitely go back and watch it, because it's really great. Great drive down the byline. And it's a really, really good pick out to the back post. This is where having the wing backs, and especially somebody as attacking minded as Nicky Cadden, really helps. Not that Obita wouldn't be in a similar position, but I think we know with Nicky Cadden's quality, this is a perfect place to have him in. And I've highlighted Josh Campbell just because I think something that maybe went a bit unnoticed, but again, I'd encourage people to go back and have a look at when that ball goes to the back post. Nicky Devlin's on his way out to maybe challenge it, and Campbell just does enough. I think he kind of gets in beside Nicky Devlin. I don't know if it's in the next clip or not, Liam, but no, he goes in and he just sort of disrupts him. He's not going for the ball. He just kind of runs sort of in and gets close to him and disrupt Nicky Devlin's jump. And then obviously it falls to Nicky Cadden, listen, that's not an easy finish to do, but the technique's perfect, and great volley, and puts us 2-1 up again at a really good time in the game.
Aye. It was well deserved as well. I thought Hibs came on to a good game after the equaliser. Sorry, and then it got even better after half time. And this is the kind of what you want to see Triantis doing in this role, don't you? Because he anticipates the pass so well, and then he's got the kind of he's got the engine to drive forward, and then we know he can pick a pass. There's so much to like about this goal, I thought.
Yeah, we touched on it last week against Ross County, where he robs Randall off the ball. No foul, does really well to win it. Hits a straight pass to Eliuan, sprints forward, gets on the ball again, and plays a great ball into Hoylett, and that leads to Gale's goal. But this is another side of his game that's great, because I think Shinnie picks the ball up, rolls it into Clarkson, and Clarkson just plays that square pass towards Nielsen. And if Triantis is already looking and anticipating it. And what's great, and this is why, when people are debating about him playing in there, and we probably, well, more so me maybe, have been probably one of his biggest critics for his defensive side of things. When in positions like this goal sort of perfectly encompasses why he's such a vital player in there, because he intercepts it with his right, He takes one touch to sort of set himself with his left while still moving forward. And then he just plays a really nice ball into Martin Boyle. So this is him setting himself with his left here, just to keep the ball under control. You can see at this point Boyle's spinning in behind because he can see that there's going to be a chance. And then I think if you go into the next clip, it's just he carries the ball forward and he just plays a really nice ball. And it does push Boyle a little bit wide, for being a little bit critical, but it's a really good weighted pass, and you can see there centre half is flat. Looking at Triantis, Mackenzie's too far out because Aberdeen obviously really like to push their fullbacks on, and they're about to anticipate an attack before the ball's turned over. And then as he goes in to go in towards the goalkeeper, this could be my boldest shout. I'm going to give him. I'm going to give him credit because again, he's been somebody that I know gets a lot of criticism. He actually takes it first time, and whether he means it or not, he hits the ball into the ground, a la Mesut Ozil style, and that actually, when Douin puts his foot out to try and block it, the ball kind of goes over his foot and goes in. So I'm going to credit Martin Boyle with that finish, that he meant it just to try and put the ball over Douin's foot, because I think if he hits that flat, Douin probably saves it just because he has been pushed a little bit wide from Triantis' pass. But, a fantastic finish, coming in the 47th, 48th minute, just the perfect time, really hits Aberdeen with a proper sucker punch. Their crowds just start turning on them a little bit. And then for us, it's a case of we can drop back into that deep shape, get everybody behind the ball and just sort of threaten them on the counter-attack again. And the fact that our goals have come from Martin Boyle and Johan and I suppose Nicky Cadden as well in those wide areas, that's the bit that probably worried them quite a lot and just sort of meant it was quite a stuffy second half.
Aye, absolutely. Yeah, we will. We'll give Martin Boyle the credit for that. We'll say that he absolutely meant it. And you're right, it's a great spot because it does become vital to the finish because of he's maybe pushed out a wee bit wider than he would like, and then that allows the goalkeeper to close the angle a wee bit. So yeah, great finish, great goal, great performance all round from Hibs. So I mean, do you think does this feel like a corner has been turned for you, or do you still think it's too early to be definitive about it?
It's really difficult, I think, with the nature of the game this week. That's kind of is always going to be a challenge and difficult. And again, we picked up another. Well, looked like a couple. Hora obviously went down and had to go off, maybe aggravating the injury he got against Ross County. Newell went off as well. So it's quite sometimes difficult because we're often having to, we get a good result and a good performance, but we're having to change one thing or tweak something because it's, there's been an injury or there's a suspension and things like that. So I do think it's I think for the players, and you could see the way, they fought and battled all the way to the end and the celebrations with the away end. I think probably internally for them, it feels like, right, this is more like what we thought we were going to be like this season. This is the type of the team that we are. But what they need to do, just with the nature of the time of the season and the nature of the results that have gone previous, is we have to keep getting results. And we have to keep putting in performances like this one. And I think if we do perform like that, the teams in and around us, I've got every faith that we can beat most of those teams with the quality that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just about digging results out at this time of year, isn't it? It's about getting through it. And obviously there's no bigger game for Hibs than the Edinburgh Derby, which is coming up on Boxing Day. We'll have a preview, plenty of preview of that to come. For today, though, we are going to leave it there. But part 2 of our review of the Aberdeen game will be available on our YouTube channel tomorrow. We'll go into more depth on the game as a whole. We've just kind of focused on breaking down the goals here today and had a wee look at the stats, but we'll look at Hibs out of possession shape and possession, the way they pressed, the way Aberdeen tried to break Hibs down. So plenty more to come. That'll be on our YouTube channel tomorrow morning at about 9 a.m. So you can watch that there. Just on our YouTube channel, actually, I've been banging on for weeks about trying to get us over that 1,000 subscriber mark, and we passed it over the weekend. So big thanks to everybody who has subscribed to the YouTube channel. If you haven't yet, it's absolutely free. It means you don't miss any of these shows. We've also got post-match interviews on there as well. Instant reaction after the game on the whistle at full time, and then of course the videos with myself and Craig. We've got Matty Fernie from the Long Bangers podcast who joins us before games every week, so plenty on there. So do check it out, do hit the subscribe button if you haven't yet. But as I said, a big thanks to everybody who has. Yeah, and just finally from me, again, thanks to Craig for joining us and for the insight as always. As I said, folks, don't forget the second part of our match review will be on our YouTube channel tomorrow morning. So do keep an eye out for that. But for now, thank you as always for joining us, and we'll speak to you again soon.